Page 53, continued characters. Question 18, quote, "There is no figure in the early drama of Shakespeare so magnificent," within bracket, Dowden, Dowden, stop. Discuss this with reference to Theseus, or discuss the character of Theseus, Duke of Athens. Answer. A Midsummer Night's Dream is not important for characterization, though Shakespeare displays his command over characterization of Theseus and Bottom. Other characters are slightly sketched. Theseus represents Shakespeare's early ideal of a heroic warrior and man of action. Page 54. Quote, "He creates an impression of greatness and strength of mind, will, and body. He has the self-centered serenity of strength, the calmness of conscious power. No crisis would evolve from him, fret and excitement of weaker natures," unquote. Verify. Para. Theseus is a sketch of the noble ruler from the Renaissance humanist model. He has returned conqueror from war against Thebes as well as against the Amazons and celebrated victory. He goes hunting accompanied by his no less keen and expert lady with his well-chosen pack of hounds. He is more a romantic than a classical character, though he is taken from Greek legends. He is more a romantic than a classical character, though he is taken from Greek legends. He is a soldier and a man of action who wooed his wife with his sword and, quote, "won her love doing her injuries," Act 1, Scene 1, stop. His career has been one of conquest, Act 1, Scene 1. And his triumphs have been celebrated in set orations prepared by scholars who, quote, "have shivered and looked pale," unquote, in the presence of so famous a soldier. Titania has had her affair with Theseus, whom she led through the glittering night from Periguna, and also made Briar break his faith with fair eagles, with Ariadne and Antiopa. But these love adventures are outside the play. Alike in his hunting pack and his love adventures, he is a romantic, but he is not subject to follies that the lovers suffer from. As lovers, he and Hippolyta are mature. This is apparent in the terms on which they converse. It does not lack warmth. They await their marriage with controlled impatience. A particularly sympathetic trait in his love is his concern at her disquiet over the course and outcome of Hermia's trial, a disquiet of which he is sensitively aware. He is himself unhappy what he has to deliver. He cannot alter the ancient law of Athens. To dramatize the inability of unaided reason to ensure a tolerable outcome is the thematic function of the episode and of Theseus's dilemma in it. However, he appreciates the indispensable place of imagination in the reception of drama. On the lovers' and artisans' behalf, he does not desert reason, but applies it in a liberal spirit. There is gentle ironic humor with which he greets their awakening. Line 1, Saint Valentine is past. Line 2, begin these wood birds, but to couple now. Para. Here he shows sympathy and rational detachment of the mature man. Unquote, Pyramus and Thisbe, unquote, he does not abdicate his judgment, but turns it into another playfully ironic jest, colon, quote, marry, comma, if he that writ it had played Pyramus, and hanged himself in Thisbe's garter, it would have been a fine tragedy, unquote. Theseus is a mentor. He expresses the underlying idea of this comedy in the oft-quoted passage about the lover, the lunatic, and the poet. His comment on the acting of Bottom and his fellows may be accepted as an interpretation of the whole play, quote. The best in this kind are but shadows, and the worst are no worse if imagination amend them, unquote. Roman V.I. 205-6. Here he admits the role of imagination. He ensures a happy conclusion for the artisans and the young people. He is indeed a sympathetic statesman. Question 19. Bottom is the most impressive character in the whole play. Discuss. Or, quote, Bottom is one of the most distinctly drawn characters of the play, unquote. Discuss. Answer. Bottom is a central figure in all the complication of the plot of A Midsummer Night's Dream. He is an embodiment of earthy humanity who remains splendidly himself, whatever happens to him or around him. He is a character with whom an audience can readily engage. His transformation into an ass fits him as one who, in the scale of human folly, a natural, page 55, ingrained to full, FOOL stop. His experience remains at the most prosaic level, and his dream, quote, passed the wit of man to say what dream it was, unquote. 4.1, 208-9, leaves him groping for words. He has no poetry in which to articulate his vision, only garbled phrases from the first sentence of Corinthians. 2.9-10. He never becomes aware that he has been transformed into an ass, and if this lack of awareness makes a kind of innocence which is appealing, it also defines his limitations. He is a mechanic, weaver, whose occupation keeps him in constant touch with the earth. He is a realist, but he does not understand what really is, what reality. He is a realist, but he does not understand what reality is. Being a realist, he does not want to leave anything to imagination. Though he will play Pyramus, he wants a prologue in which he might tell the audience that he, Pyramus, is not Pyramus, but the weaver. And if the ladies are terrified, let Snug, the joiner, quote, name his name, unquote, and tell them plainly he is Snug, the joiner. Others may object that this will destroy dramatic illusion, but Bottom cares for truth. His instructions about the representation of the lion and the wall are but an indication of the absurdity to which realism unenlivened by imagination may lead to a dramatic producer, para. Bottom is marked by self-assurance, courage, and conceits, and is a man possessed of a strong common sense and good resources. From the beginning, although Queen's is technically the head of the show, Bottom takes upon himself the whole management of the play. His self-confidence is such that he would have liked to act all the parts himself, from the greatest to the least. He asks quote, what is Pyramus, ? A lover, or a tyrant, ? unquote, and then asserts, quote, if I do it, let the audience do their eyes, ... Yet my chief humor is for a tyrant, ... unquote. A few minutes later he says, quote, let me play Thisbe too, . I will speak in a monstrous little voice, quote, Thisbe, Thisbe, and still later, quote, let me play the lion to Cologne. I will roar, that will do any man's heart good to hear me, stop, unquote, para. Bottom's part and personality have their motto in the words in which he awakes after his adventure in the wood, Cologne, quote. When my cue comes, I will answer it, stop, unquote. In his vanity, he even takes up the cues which are not there. He applauds his own performance, Cologne, quote. This was lofty, unquote, stop. He is full of self-confidence. He uses a more ambitious vocabulary than he is master of. Much of the best comedy of situation comes in his role. He is made the adored consort of the fairy queen. When he is translated into a monster with the ass head and is made to make love to Titania, who dotes on him, a sequence of ludicrous situation ensues. In his ass head he sings. She offers him fairy music and fairy food. Bottom is quite unconscious of the romance of fairyland. Para. But none of the things which make Bottom ridiculous deprives him of our liking or even of the admiration we have for him. His vanity is a pleasant vanity founded on a real superiority. His comrades openly recognize his abilities and respect his opinion on all points. They say, quote, there is not one in all Athens able to discharge Pyramus, but he, unquote. Queen's flatters his vanity. Bottom's absurdity comes from his practical ability and common sense. He has an urge to be doing, quote, in every difficulty he sets to work at once, unquote, and his counsel cannot be ignored. He gets the preparations for, quote, Pyramus, unquote, off to a good start, Cologne. First, good Peter Queen's say what the play treats on, semicolon. Then, read the names of the actors and so grow to a point. Then, bringing the news that, quote, the Duke has dined, unquote, directs him to a good conclusion. He makes one of the most sensible speeches in the play, Cologne, quote. To say the truth, reason and love keep little company together nowadays, stop. They move the pity, that some honest neighbors will not make them friends, stop, unquote. He is equal, page 56, to all occasions. In all his ludicrous situations, his bearing carries him triumphantly through. If he were simply their victim, that would be low comedy. What turns them to high comedy is his imperturbability. The contrast between the situation which would discomfit him and the fact that he is not discomfited is comic. He has courage. He catches no panic from terrified companions. He is at home everywhere. With his fairy grooms he is admirably courteous and not without humour. When the Duke raises objection, Bottom will take it as his cue to answer, and he will clear the difficulty with patient courtesy. He is comically at ease everywhere. His manners at court are conventionally wrong, yet they are right because they are easy and natural. Bottom takes a sensible view of Titania's advances because he knows, Cologne, quote, reason and love keep little company together nowadays, stop. His self-confidence keeps him unperturbed in every situation. This is the source of his humor. Like until his downfall, Bottom is rather more than equal to any situation. But Bottom's triumphs, in contrast with Falstaff's, are unself-conscious. He does not see the difficulty, and his boundless self-confidence and genuine qualities carry him through. He takes a very cool and unromantic view of the romantic situation in which he suddenly finds himself. In human society, he is an object of ridicule for people possessing intelligence and imagination, but in elf-land, he takes advantage of his position to become a conscious humorist and cracks jokes at the expense of the fairy servitors who hail an ass as their overlord. When this uncompromising realist awakes, I think it's printing mistake, from his dream, he is for a moment haunted by the memory of this unusual experience, which is reflected in a confusion of language, but he soon recovers himself and becomes the old realist again. It leaves no permanent impression on him. He does not let his mind dwell on it, because it is uncongenial to his unromantic temperament. The ballad that Queens is to write shall be called, quote, bottom stream, unquote, because it hath no bottom. No bottom because no foundation, and no bottom because unfathomably profound. Question 20. Comment on the character and role of Puck in the play, quote, A Midsummer Night's Dream, unquote, stop. Answer. Puck is a merry-making, mischievous wanderer of the night, and his aim is not to profit either himself or anyone else, but to jest to Oberon and make him smile. He has been called the, quote, lob of spirit, unquote, that is, the clown or jester to Oberon. He has also been called a, quote, knavish spirit called, unquote, Robin Goodfellow, who, line 1, quote, frights the maidens of the villagery, semicolon. Line 2, skim milk, and sometimes labor in the quern, quern, Line 3, and bootless make it breathless, housewife churn, stop, unquote. Roman 2i.1i, 34-36, para. He possesses the power of changing his shape at will, transforming himself into, quote, a full, F-O-O-L, unquote, quote, a roasted crab, unquote, or, quote, a 3-foot stool, unquote, stop. He can also counterfeit noises and people's voices, as when in Act 3, Scene 2, he draws both Lysander and Demetrius alternately mimicking their voices away from each other. He can move with extraordinary swiftness, but does not possess the same powers of vision as possessed by the superior spirit, Oberon, para. Puck's love of mischief is the most prominent feature of his character. He not only frights maidens, but misleads night wonders and beguiles fat and bean-fed horses, and does not even spare old women from his pranks. Page 57, para. The sight of the mechanics of Athens rehearsing their drama in the wood stirs up Puck's sense of mischief, and he picks out bottom, quote, the thickest keel of that barren sort, unquote, as his special victim. He mistakes Lysander for Demetrius and is never sorry for all the complications, some of them pretty serious, that result from that mistake. Para. He has just a few pleasing qualities too. He is loved by Oberon, who calls him, quote, my sweet Puck, unquote, quote, my gentle Puck, unquote, stop. He has a feeling of beauty for beauty in distress and addresses sleeping Hermia sympathetically as, quote, pretty soul, unquote. His concluding speech reveals an unaccustomed modesty which is rather a pleasant surprise for his audience who have so long been used to mischief-making. Para. Puck plays a very important role in Midsummer Night's Dream. In fact, it is due to his mistake and to his love of mischief that we get all the love entanglements that are almost tragical. But the troubles of lovers have almost no meaning for Puck, who exclaims, quote, "Lord, O Kama, what fools these mortals be," unquote, Roman 3I, 2I, 114, para. In the first scene of the second act goes at the bidding of Oberon in search of the flower called love in idleness. When he comes back with the love juice, Oberon asks him to apply it on the eyes of the Athenian youth, meaning Demetrius, but he mistakes Lysander and Demetrius and pours the love juice on the sleeping eyes of Lysander, and a series of intriguing situations commence. Lysander wakes up to find Helena before him and forthwith falls in love with her, para. In the first scene of Act 3, in another part of the wood, Puck finds the Athenian artisans rehearsing the drama. He waits for a suitable opportunity, and with his love of mischief, he puts an ass's head on Bottom, who is blissfully unconscious of his monstrous transformation of his own self. Titania, queen of the fairies, herself under the influence of love juice, meets Bottom with the ass's head and becomes a victim of his assy charm. Para. In the next scene of the same act, Puck's mistake assumes serious proportion. Hermia, who is ignorant of Lysander's infatuation for Helena, accuses Demetrius with having murdered him. Helena, unaccountably associated with Lysander's sudden love, thinks herself insulted and injured. She feels all the more so when Demetrius, now under the magic power of love juice, starts professing his love for her. This leads him and Lysander, both in love with Helena, to the verge of a duel. Puck then draws them apart by mimicking the voice of each to the other and making the night dark and foggy, para. In the first scene of the fourth act, we find Titania doting on Bottom, who has still the ass's head. Puck appears again and relieves Bottom of the ass's head, while Oberon releases the queen from her enchantment, para. Thus, Puck, with his merry and mischief-making propensity, creates all complications and then himself helps to untangle all the entanglements of the plot. He is responsible for producing all amusing and humorous situations. He is not only a jester but plays a big role in the conflict and confusions and ultimate solutions of the conflict that constitutes the chief interest in the action of A Midsummer Night's Dream, para. After contributing his full quota of mischief and merriment to the action of the play throughout, he appears again at the end of the last act, Act 5, and blesses the wedded couples and the house, and, in addition, apologizes for the apparently nonsensical theme of the play by saying, colon, page 58, quote, line 1, "Think but this, and all is mended, colon." Line 2, "that you have but slumbered here, line 3, while these visions did appear, semicolon. Line 4, "and this weak and idle theme." Line 5, "no more yielding but a dream," unquote, stop. Roman V.1I.397 to 401. Question 21. Comment on the contrast between Hermia and Helena. Answer. Hermia and Helena are differentiated both in physical features and in temperament. Hermia is short and dark. Helena is tall and fair. Hermia is beauteous, Roman 1I.1I.105, with, quote, sphery eye, unquote, 2I.2I.105, and a voice more tunable than lark to shepherd's ear, para. About her early life, it is said that About her early life, it is said that, quote, she was vixen when she went to school, and though she be but little, she is fierce, unquote. Roman 3i.2i, 3:24-5. But she was a maidenly lover. Later, she becomes fierce and threatens to scratch Helena's eyes with her nails because she was smashing under the idea both her lover, Lysander, and her old friend, Helena, have become averse to her. As a matter of fact, Hermia is spirited and warm-blooded, tender in happy love, hot and militant in anger. Helena is much more the lady Cologne, very feminine and very much aware of it. Para. Hermia has a natural strong will. She is ready to go to a nunnery or even to die rather than submit to the, quote, unwished yoke, unquote, of one she felt she could not love. She learns patience in her trial. She tells Lysander, quote, line 1, then let us teach our trial patience, comma, line 2, because it is a customary cross. Line 3, as due to love as thoughts and dreams and sighs, unquote, etc. Helena is very feminine, timid and gentle, though she cannot forbear to pursue Demetrius. The pursuit offends her womanhood. Quote, we should be wooed and were not meant to woo, unquote. She reproaches him, quote, your wrong do set a scandal on my sex, unquote, stop. It is another scandal that Hermia, as Helena thinks, should, quote, join with men, unquote, against a bosom friend since girlhood. In a speech of dignity and pathos, Helena renounces her doting chase. Helena betrays her friend's confidence and she demeans herself, spaniel fashion, to Demetrius. Both aberrations have the same psychological origin, loss of self-respect as a result of being jolted. The key is given on her first appearance. Para, quote, call you me fair? Question mark. That fair again unsay, unquote, comma, is her opening line. Attraction she has none, comma, since Demetrius thinks not so. All trust in herself has deserted her, Cologne. She would give up her own identity if she could have Hermia's. Her another aberration has the same cause. She cannot believe that Lysander's or even Demetrius addresses anything but mockery. Just before Lysander starts up with his avoidal, her monologue reminds us of herself, her self-depreciation. Quote, line 1. I am as ugly as a bear. Line 2. What wicked and dissembling glass of mine. Line 3. Made me compare with Hermia's fiery iron. Unquote, stop. Naturally, Helena cannot suppose the young men are in earnest. She is not a girl who gets jilted. This is her fixation. Psychologically, the character is consistently conceived. Page 59, question 22. Contrast Lysander with Demetrius. Answer. Lysander and Demetrius, the two young lovers of Athens, have hardly any distinguishing features. In fact, as Hudson has said, in these two lovers, quote, there are hardly any lines deep and firm enough to be rightly called characteristic. Stop. But a careful study of the play, comma, nevertheless discloses certain distinctive features which deserve mention. Stop. Para. Lysander, the lover of Hermia, is referred to as a worthy gentleman of high rank and good future. He loves Hermia, and Hermia returns this love. When the play opens, we find him quite confident of his own importance and treating his future father-in-law, Egeus, with some scorn. He loves Hermia with all his heart and cannot be accused of faithlessness when he suddenly transfers his affection to Helena. This metamorphosis is due to Puck's blunder and the effect of Cupid's flower. Para. However, both Lysander and Demetrius lack strong individuality which might have averted the manipulation. Both of them begin as embodiments of the true love, and the deserter exchange roles, and when Lysander is himself again end as true love's both. The final pairing of the lovers accords with the original choice made by the girls, in which they remain constant. Lysander's lapse is under the compulsion of the magic which is beyond the personal. Para. The lover story exhibits comedy of character. At the climax, with the frustrated duel of the lovers' troubles and of their follies, the quarrel brings out the relationship in the audience's response between amusement at the one and pity of the other. Even in a comic situation, distress is still distress, arouses some sympathy. They cannot, with Oberon watching over them, come to great harm. Puck encourages us to view their tribulations as a, quote, fond pageant, unquote. Quote, Lord, what fools these mortals be, exclamation, unquote. The lovers' griefs are capsuled within the comedic structure. Question 23. Comment on the roles of Oberon and Titania. Answer. If Theseus is a mentor, ensuing a happy conclusion for the artisans and the young lovers, Oberon is another mentor of the lovers. His sorting out of the tangle is essential before Theseus can bring their troubles to an end. What he does is benevolent from the first in intention and eventually in result. But he makes mistake. His magic does not tell him Lysander is in the wood, and so he fails to brief Puck against the error into which he falls. Towards Titania, he is again from one point of view a mentor, Colon. He takes charge of her experience in order to guide her into a change of attitude. But with the lovers, he has no stake as a mentor. With Titania, he is in conflict, Colon. This is his own drama. His move against her is designed to reunite her with him. Titania's attachment to her dead friend's child has become an obsession. It is perhaps high time the boy was weaned from maternal care of the boy who is, quote, ill her joy, unquote, at the expense of Oberon. She wants to bring her up to become a knight and huntsman. Oberon and Titania being elements they discard. Being elementals, their discard, as she is too well aware, means discord in nature. Their reconciliation is imperative, and since she will not or cannot renounce her obsession which stands in the way, he must compel her. Oberon asks Puck to bring, quote, Cupid's flower, unquote, or the love juice for Titania. This love juice was used on Lysander by Puck through mistake, and this mistake gives rise to all kinds of complications. Titania, when she herself becomes a victim of this love juice, developed a fascination for bottom. Page 60. With an ass's head, Colon. This fascination on the part of the queen of fairies is both pathetic and ludicrous. Although we enjoy the scene in the wood where Titania tries her best to win the love of the assy monster, we cannot help pitying her and are relieved when she is released from the influence of the charm juice and the ass's head is removed from Bottom's head. In fact, right from the Act 2, Scene 1 up to the end of Act 4, Scene 1, Titania appears to be the pivot round which the different incidents revolve and add to the general development of the story and lead up to the happy reunion of all who suffer temporary dislocations in the morning in that wood inhabited by the fairies. Para. Oberon is obviously not a perfect being, though he is capable of when he has obtained his end, pitying Titania in her delusion before freeing her from it. His action is again benevolent in result and indeed in ultimate aim, but now in temper. He is jealous of Titania's devotion to Theseus as well as to the changeling boy, and he is resolved to, quote, torment her, unquote, for her slighting of him. As a matter of fact, the fairies, including Oberon and Titania, are not creatures of glossy charm. They are not the wisps of gossamer. The critics find in them dark potentialities in their natures and their power, sinister, even malevolent. The romantic conceived them as ethereal, ethereal, and delightful. Titania proposes to make Bottom, quote, like an airy spirit go, unquote, stop. She implies that she herself is one. She is a vigorously active spirit, hastening her very first quatrain announces. Quote line 1, over park, P-A-R-K-P capital, comma, over pale, line 2, thorough flood, comma, thorough fire, unquote. Para. She attends on grass and flowers. What evidence is there of anything potentially sinister about this fairyland? There is a scene, and one or two further glimpses of Oberon, quote, passing fell and wrath, unquote, the frame of mind in which he consigns Titania for her new love object, to same vile thing, unquote, some ugly or hostile beast such as the woods evidently shelter. The chaos in nature which Titania describes is evidently her fault and Oberon's, but she deplores it and he takes steps which put a stop to it. It is contrary to their goodwill, not malice. Order in nature is shown as dependent on the amity which is normal between them. Since their quarrel is abnormal and temporary, the dependence is not potentially sinister. Next, textual questions and answers.